was.
Okay, I think we're gonna get started. So, hi everyone, good morning, afternoon, and good evening. Happy Thursday. We're gonna get started exactly on the hour, which is right now. And it's great to see you all today. Thanks for joining. And today's webinar is entitled 5 Considerations Before You Implement AI in the Contact Center. Just some housekeeping up top. My name is Serge Rubenstein. I'm a marketing director here at Balto. I'll be co-hosting today's webinar with Lior Tornberg. Lior's background, she's the head of Balto's Conversation Excellence Lab, which is Balto's data analysis and research arm. We analyze Balto's over 200 million calls for industry insights, and we conduct regular industry surveys on topics such as attrition, motivation, onboarding, scripts, and more. Today's session will be 45 minutes, including some Q&A at the end. To submit questions for the Q&A, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to make sure we see your questions. Finally, all registrants will receive a copy of the slides and the video recording from today following the webinar. Today, we're going to be covering 5 considerations before implementing AI in your contact center. Those considerations are: do you understand AI? Do you know what it is at its core and how it can be used? What is your use case for AI? Where would it be most helpful in your organization? What metrics do you want to focus on? Let's not boil the ocean, right? So where do we want to start? What are the limitations of AI? What can it do and what it cannot do? How are you going to implement AI in your organization? How are you going to get buy-in and plan for proper change management in your organization? Then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A at the end, as I said. And to recap, to submit questions for the Q&A, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to make sure we see your questions. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to our presenter for today, Blair Pleasant. Blair is an analyst and industry expert. She has been in the industry for over 20 years, providing market insights and analysis on business communication markets and end user technologies. She is the president and principal analyst at ComFusion and the co-founder of BC Strategies. So now I'm going to pass it on to Blair to get started with today's topic. Blair, take it away.
Thank you, Serge. So I am thrilled to be here today to talk about this important topic. So I think we know by now that AI is changing everything. It's just unbelievable. And the contact center and customer experience are no different. AI has been hot for a while, but now with all the excitement about ChatGPT and generative AI, it's become really, really hot. And based on customers I've spoken with and research that I've done, I estimate that about 20% of agents were using AI in some sort of capacity by the end of 2022, and at least 30% by the end of 2023. And it's going to skyrocket after that. AI is going to be embedded in more and more of the tools that agents and contact centers use. So the issue that most contact centers and most organizations are still trying to figure out is where and how to use AI. They know it's important, they know it's the hot trend, but they don't know where to start or where to get the biggest bang for the buck. Everyone's talking about it, but it's going to take time to actually get it right. Everything we thought we knew about AI is changing. Now, ChatGPT, OpenAI, large language models, generative AI, it's changing everything. And we'll be talking about this a little bit more later. But generative AI is probably the most disruptive technology we've seen in a long time, and it really does change everything. So the first consideration before implementing AI in your contact center is make sure you understand AI. What is it? So what do I mean by that? So AI is not one thing. It's really an umbrella term for a whole range of technologies. So there's natural language processing, or NLP, that focuses on understanding human language. So NLP helps computers interpret and respond to human language in a sense. It understands spoken and written words. Then there's natural language understanding, or NLU, which helps computers understand the meaning behind human language. It can help get insights from customer conversations and help agents understand things like customer intent and what the customer is trying to do. And there's text to speech, and this has been around for a while. Most of us have had experiences with text-to-speech, and it basically converts written text into spoken words. And fortunately, it doesn't sound quite as robotic today as it used to, and it is a bit more natural sounding these days. Speech recognition, this has also been around for a long time. This is where it converts spoken words into text. And then there's sentiment analysis, and that analyzes the emotional tone of written or spoken text. So in the contact center, sentiment analysis is being used to identify customer sentiment and help agents tailor the responses to provide better customer service and also more empathy when it's needed. Then there's machine learning. There's just so much of this. So ML helps computers learn and improve from data without explicitly being programmed. So it can be used to improve the accuracy of automated responses. It's being used to predict customer behavior and in a sense, optimize contact center performance. And all these technologies are being used in different ways in the contact center, which we'll be talking about. But some of the key ways that they're being used is by automating or providing automated responses to customers via chatbots or voice assistants. We've all used chatbots probably when we've been trying to get customer service. Another way is assisting agents by providing relevant information or automating routine tasks. It's being used to analyze customer conversations to identify trends and insights, predicting customer behaviors to personalize interactions. And we'll be talking about all these use cases more in a minute. So let's talk about generative AI. This is the hot topic right now, of course, and it's relatively new, but it's extremely disruptive. I assume most of you have tried ChatGPT, and if you haven't, you'll be absolutely amazed at what it can do. So ChatGPT is based on large language models, or LLM, and it can understand what a person is trying to say. And it does this based on being trained on tons and tons of training data. I mean, basically the entire internet. So for the contact center, AI or generative AI is primarily being used for call summarization and also agent assistance. It can also be used for quality monitoring by creating survey questions. It can be used to create bots. Companies now are creating bots using this. It can draft email responses to customers and just so much more. We're really at the very, very beginning stages. Ideally, it can help customers by providing responses to inquiries through a chatbot or virtual assistant. But this is where you really have to be careful. AI, generative AI right now is not 100% accurate. You've probably all been hearing about how ChatGPT hallucinates and basically just makes up information if it doesn't know something, but it does it in a way so it sounds really confident in the answer. So we still have to be very, very careful about the way we're using it. Well, anywhere, but especially in the contact center. So initially, generative AI and ChatGPT are going to need some level of human supervision, and humans are still going to need to validate and edit the information that it produces. So you might hear the term human in the loop, and that's what it's referring to. So we could spend hours talking about generative AI and probably will in future webinars, but let's move on for now. Lior?
Thanks, Blair. So before we move on from talking broadly about AI usage, I wanted to share this graph. We talked to over 400 contact center leaders in the Conversation Excellence Lab's most recent report, and we asked them how they're increasing efficiency. And part of this was through AI. Over 40% of our respondents said they were more interested in AI today than they were 12 months ago. That's the blue bar. Another 51% said they were just as interested, that's the yellow, and only 9% said they were less interested. So we have that small red section. But interest does not always translate to usage, right? That's why we're here. The majority of our respondents, around 60%, it was 59, were not using AI tools today. But of this majority, about half were actively planning to implement AI in the next 12 months. And the through line here and throughout this presentation is that AI in the contact center is very rapidly gaining a foothold, right? It seems really innovative now, but it is going to become table stakes extremely quickly.
Yep, totally agree. AI definitely is becoming table stakes, or it will be table stakes. So let's move on to consideration number 2, define your use case. So I look at AI as being customer facing or agent facing. AI for customer facing applications is, chatbots for self-service or to help triage your root customer calls. And the need for customer service is really driving all of this. Conversational AI, where people can interact with the bots or interactive virtual agents in a more natural way. These are also gaining traction and replacing, the dreaded IVR that we all hate. And it's replacing it with a more conversational and natural way to interact to get the information that customers need. On the agent-facing side, the biggest use of AI that I've been seeing is for call guidance and agent assist for now, and also on call summarization. So instead of having the agent spend time searching for information, bots can be listening in the background, and when they hear a key phrase or word, they can access information from a knowledge base and give that information to the agent. And this helps save time and produce better outcomes. So AI is really being used behind the scenes to help agents with things like producing the next best action and suggested answers, helping agents with coaching and training. We're also going to see more robotic process automation, or RPA, to help with things in the back office. Sentiment analysis is also being used quite a bit. And that's to help guide live agents to respond to calls with the appropriate emotional sentiment. And again, usually it's empathy, but it can be different things. And it uses natural language understanding to understand the sentiment behind the text or the voice data and suggest the best way for the agent to respond. And as mentioned, generative AI is already being used with after work calls, like call summarization. And Lior is going to talk about this more in a minute. So what I see as the top use cases today are here. So I already talked about some of these, agent coaching and guidance, where AI provides the next best response and recommendations and best practice guidance. And this can also be used to help with upsell and cross-sell opportunities. Chatbots, of course, are one of the top use cases, and this isn't new. And chatbots use AI to interact with customers on websites or mobile apps to drive digital customer service. And digital self-service is really the big driver right now. Automation is another area. It can help agents follow up on tasks, automate processes like credit card processing, helping to fill out forms. Another use case is AI-enabled workforce engagement, or workforce management, workforce optimization for quality monitoring, forecasting, and scheduling. And we're already seeing that starting to be used. Analytics is another area, intelligently analyzing and making decisions based on customer data, including things like context and history. And this helps understand what's going on, and it helps agents meet the customers where they are on their journey. Then there's also predictive analytics, and this helps understand customer behavior and demand forecasting. And then there's intelligent routing and queue management. That's another emerging area. Another interesting area is AI for real-time language translation to help agents and customers better communicate regardless of what language they're speaking. And this is all still pretty new, but it's a very exciting topic. Lior?
I'm glad that you brought up after call work, because I want to just talk about after call work for a second. If you're not familiar with ACW, it encompasses activities like call summarization, which we talked about a little, but also disposition coding, updating a CRM, sending follow-up emails, maybe putting information in another system. There's so many activities that an agent might be expected to do after a call is over. And that after call work can sometimes take as long or even longer than the call itself. And when we did our research at the Conversation Excellence Lab, we found that after call work was actually closely correlated to agent attrition. That's what this graph is showing. Those with the least amount of after call work had the lowest attrition, and vice versa. And using AI can help reduce that after call work. For example, something like just after call summarization. When a call is over, writing a summary. Let's say it takes a minute per call. If you can automate it with AI and your agents are doing 40 calls a day, they now have 40 minutes a day back in their schedule. So think of all the things that they can do with that time. So it's not really a surprise that we see this correlation between after call work and attrition, because what we're really talking about is bandwidth. And it's a great area for AI application as you're defining your ideal use case. Another area is, aside from the use case, focusing on the right metrics. I know it's tempting to go big when implementing AI, and in the long term, you might want a broad solution that tackles a lot of areas. But when we're just getting started here, we don't want to boil the ocean, right? If we want to prove ROI, we have to be very targeted and very specific in what we're trying to do. So I recommend picking 1 or maybe 2 metrics max that mean the most to your organization today, and try to see how AI can help you address them. So we talked a little about ACW, but maybe that metric for you is something else like CSAT or first call resolution. In our research, we found that over 10% of contact center leaders actually just stopped using AI because they didn't see the ROI. That's the purple segment. And sometimes this is an issue of the tool, but very often it's not. Very often it's an issue of implementation. So making sure to pick the right metric you want to focus on can help you achieve that ROI and not give up on a tool. And we asked our respondents, our contact center leaders, which metrics they cared the most about. Those were CSAT, customer retention rate, and average handle time. And the least important metrics that our leaders were not very concerned with were dials per week, cost per call, and net promoter score, NPS. So all 3 of those top metrics, CSAT, customer retention, AHT, they kind of point towards an emphasis on the customer experience. So if you're thinking about the customer experience, think about AI for knowledge bases or proactive customer support or agent guidance, all of these family of applications that'll have an impact on your CSAT and your customer retention. So just to break this down a little, we're going to pick a metric, isolate our use case, start as small as we can, track our improvements, and then when we're ready, socialize that new technology to the rest of the team. And here's what this looks like, right? Let's say we picked CSAT as the metric we wanted to work on. And we decided that we were going to start with agent guidance to help our agents always say the right thing on calls and therefore improve customer experience. And we're just going to start small, right? We're having 20 agents on board next month, so we're just going to pilot it with them. And we're going to give it 3 months to see how those agents perform compared to previous cohorts and compared to the general agent population. And once we have our results and we're confident in our results, then we can decide to socialize that technology to the rest of our agents.
Yeah, those are such important guidelines. I think that's great. So let's move on to the next consideration. Recognize the limitations of AI. Now, we know AI isn't perfect, so it's important to understand what it can and can't do. And AI can do great things, but there are a lot of challenges and things to consider. The main thing I hear from customers is, where do I start? How do I start? And this isn't as obvious or easy as it may seem. And Lior gave some great guidelines for this, and it's really important to think about just where to start. So you have to think about usability also. Frankly, those of us who've used chatbots, they're not great. A lot of them, kind of stink. So you want to make sure that whatever AI technology you use, especially if it's customer facing, that it's user friendly and it works well. And as Lior mentioned, you need to think about how to justify the expense. How do you prove the ROI? Where are the cost savings coming from? And in many cases, AI is simply being embedded in the applications that vendors provide, and you may already be using it. But in other cases, there is a cost for the technology. And if we look at conversational AI, it does require professional services and continual supporting, updating, and maintaining it. And complex, large-scale conversational AI deployments can take a while to build out the call flows and fine-tune the existing call flows. So you also need to think about the data quality and availability. AI does require a lot of training data, and you have to be improving those models and training on a regular basis. And if the data is incomplete and inconsistent or inaccurate, it can lead to biased or incorrect predictions and responses. And you may have been reading about bias in AI systems, and this is a real problem. Another issue to think about is integration with your existing systems. Integrating AI systems with your existing contact center technology can be complex and time consuming. Another thing to think about is customer privacy and data security. AI systems need access to a lot of information and a lot of customer data, and that can create some concerns about privacy and security. You also have to think about managing customer expectations. Customers may have high expectations, because they're hearing all these great things about what AI can do. And they might become frustrated if the technology can't provide the level of service that they're expecting. And we saw this happen with chatbots, and a lot of customers did get frustrated with it and just stopped using them. Now, when I talk to customers, they're excited about the potential of AI in their contact centers, but again, they do have concerns. They don't have the resources, they don't know where to start. They tried chatbots and had disappointing experiences. And agents are also concerned about AI replacing them and taking over their jobs. So while we talk about AI augmenting and assisting agents rather than replacing them, but these are all valid concerns. Now, Lior, what are some of the things that you're hearing?
I think that absolutely tracks with a lot of what we've been hearing. And I do want us to return to this graph for a moment. We talked about it earlier when we were looking at that segment that stopped using AI because they didn't see the ROI. But there are a lot of other reasons people aren't using AI. And they're all very valid, and we're hearing them all the time. Significant percentages are just not interested for one reason or another. That's our yellow segment. Or they are really, really interested, but their superiors or the decision makers are not. That's our orange-red segment on the bottom left. We also have a significant amount of people that think AI is too expensive. That's the teal or turquoise segment, or just plain old complicated, which is our black or gray segment up top. But I think the idea that AI is complicated and expensive is probably a misconception today. I think even 5 years ago, that might have been the case, but it's just not the case anymore because there are a lot of applications that are at a maturity stage that makes them pretty seamless and intuitive to use, that they can help present a clear ROI, help you get there. So it's not just flashy new tech at this stage. It's the new way of doing things for a lot of different use cases. According to a 2022 research report, 85% of contact center leaders agreed that AI was valuable and recognized that there were risks of not deploying it, including risks to customer satisfaction and losses in productivity. And I know it's hard to overcome misconceptions around AI. Blair, you listed so many of them because we're hearing them. And I also understand that not all AI is created equally. And that's why it's critical to do your research, go through these 5 steps considerations before you onboard new AI to your contact center. And part of that onboarding is going to be proper change management. So what is change management? So bringing a new technology into the fold is tricky. Oftentimes, one person at your organization, maybe it's you, might be a major proponent for a new technology. But if you don't get all the right people on board and excited, it's not going to stick. It could be the best technology ever, but people might not use it. And this can become a self-fulfilling prophecy because if, let's say, your agents are wary of a technology, they're not going to put in the time to really learn it and take advantage of it. And then it's not going to get you the results that you want. So what change management essentially means in this context is that you're getting people excited, you're getting them on board, and you're getting them on the same page as you about what it is you're trying to accomplish and why. And you have to put in the thought and due diligence on your own end to think through those answers for yourself so you can then get that buy-in. So Blair's going to share a little more about what that process can look like.
Yeah, thanks, Lior. So when it comes to change management, there are some standard things to consider, just like any change management program. And you have to think about, is this part of an overall enterprise-wide digital transformation and automation effort, or is this for a contact center only? So, as we talked about, start small. Use your data to identify the best use cases to start. And I can't stress that enough. And understand your goals and what you're trying to accomplish. As we talked about, are you trying to reduce costs? Are you trying to improve customer loyalty, enhance the agent experience? Really focus on that. And then get evangelists and cheerleaders. And this is true for any technology deployment. Involve and include and train your agents. Help them understand that AI is being deployed to help them and to assist them, not to replace them. And it's going to help them do their jobs better. And make sure you're constantly reviewing, refining, and revisiting your strategy and deployment. It isn't just a one and done thing. And most important, have a strategy. A lot of people just throw in the technology, but it is important to have a strategy in place. So what are some of my recommendations? Consider starting with agent-facing, not customer-facing use cases. We saw what happened with chatbots when they were rolled out before they were ready for prime time, and it turned off a lot of customers. So think about starting with back office or agent-facing technology that can assist agents and make them more productive and efficient. Things like agent guidance and coaching or AI-enabled workforce optimization. And start with small tasks. As Lior said, don't boil the ocean. And then, after you have some experience, you can build on it and expand. So I hope you'll walk away today with some key takeaways. Recognize that while AI has some great potential, it does have limitations to consider. Think about change management. Don't just deploy technology because it's the latest cool thing to do. Start small with 1 or 2 use cases, preferably in the back office or assisting agents. And then expand strategically where it makes sense and where AI tools can be most effective. And with that, I'll hand it back to Serge.
Thank you, Blair, and thanks everybody. That's the end of the main presentation here. We have opened up the Q&A, as I said at the top, for some questions that you might have from the audience. So Leah, do you see anything that's come in over the past half hour?
Yeah, thanks, Serge, and thanks, Blair. We're so excited to get to your questions. And we had one come in that I'll just answer quickly. Someone asked where we can find the data for those graphs that we showed, what the demographics were in terms of number and representation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a link directly to that report in the chat where you all can see it. And if you're interested in the kind of the ecosystem, the demographics of that report, you can go directly to the conclusion around there. There's a demographics section that'll show you the industries, the tenure, the ages, the genders, like everything you want to know about that audience. Now I'm reading another question. Can you talk about how AI cuts down as much as you discussed with the agent's ACW? So I think what this question is asking is how exactly does AI reduce after call work? And to answer that, I want to just point out that there's so many different things that make up after call work. For example, the AI could be putting notes in a CRM. So wherever an agent types it, it would automatically break down the text and put it in different fields in Salesforce, for example. Notes, last contacted, products, just smartly updating different fields. Or it could be the after call summarization that we discussed, where it listens to a whole call and then spits out a summary within milliseconds. Blair, anything you want to add about that one?
Yeah, the call summarization is the one that I've been seeing a lot of demos about using generative AI. So it'll be listening in the background and transcribing, or if it's chat, it already has it. And within milliseconds, as Lior said, it's going to transcribe. It's going to summarize the conversation that the agent and customer had. And the accuracy that I've seen so far is very, very high. So this can save, let's say, 3 minutes of agent work time. So agents can move on to the next call or the next interaction. Now, in some cases, they do need to, look it over and make sure it's accurate. But what most companies have found is that it provides consistent summarizations. So rather than different agents writing different notes and things, it's more consistent. It also eliminates some of the jargon that agents might use. And also if agents are using acronyms or different words or something, the AI makes it more consistent across all agents. So it's better for the contact center. So again, it's very early days, but the demos that I've seen and some of the deployments I've seen are very, very impressive.
Yes, and I like that you talked about not just the time savings, but also the consistency, because that's a huge thing. Like one agent might write 2 sentences, one agent might write an absolute novel. And if you're QAing those summaries or if you're reading through them, it's going to take your brain some time to adjust to different writing styles. And that's not even to mention compliance within the notes. You have to train your agents on how to take them in such a way that is compliant. And if you're automating that, you're throwing compliance concerns out of the window. The last thing I'll add is cognitive load. I talk about this a lot, but while agents are on a call, sometimes they're already typing their after call notes because they know they're going to have to hop onto the next call super quickly. So having it automated, it takes away that multitasking so they can focus on the call and be more present. Someone asked about the margin of error that we've seen. It really depends. I think it's going to depend on which vendor and which use case. But the thing with these models, with these machine learning models, is that they're improving themselves over time. Blair, anything else about kind of margin of error that you've heard?
So far, again, it's mainly demos that I've seen, but it's phenomenal. I mean, they were pretty darn accurate. So very, very, little error, if anything. But again, the agents do need to be there to make sure that everything is accurate and that maybe an important point wasn't missed. But again, what I've seen has been absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Someone else in the Q&A is pointing out that attrition can be a really powerful and compelling driver for a financial business use case. And I completely agree. So if you want to navigate to that report I sent and just screenshot the graph that shows the relationship between after call work and attrition, and you could show that to your superiors, whoever you need, and say, this is why we need this technology. And I think that's an advantage of starting small, let's say with 20 agents, is then you have the data to say, hey, look what we saved. Look at this difference. Let's expand. Blair, anything you want to add about the relationship between AI and attrition?
Yeah, so again, a lot of agents are nervous that it's going to take away their jobs, but really what's happening now is that AI is taking away the boring stuff. It's taking away the mundane stuff. So agents are actually enjoying their jobs more. They can work with more complex issues. They can spend more time, really interacting with the customers and showing empathy and really understanding the customer issue. So agents are enjoying their jobs more because they're not doing this boring stuff. And, also with the rise of self-service and AI being used for self-service, again, all those boring questions that agents, used to be asked they're not doing that anymore. They get to work with the more interesting things. So we're seeing that AI really is helping to make agents more satisfied with their jobs, and it is cutting down on agent attrition.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that point of view. I think the fear of AI replacing agents is real. But my belief on this, and everyone has their own beliefs, is that AI is inevitably going to automate anything that can be automated, meaning anything manual and repetitive. And what you're going to be left with is the highly complex tasks. So if someone calls in because they need to change their password and they want to report a possible fraud and they want to see about changing a savings account, something that would have taken them an hour and a half with a chatbot, you're going to have these highly skilled agents to handle complex interactions.
That's a good point.
So anything to add there before we move on to the next question?
I think agent attrition and what the fear that agents have is real, or the fear of it is real. But so far, every customer that I've spoken to, none of them that's deployed AI, none of them have let go of agents. None of them have reduced agent count. What they've done is maybe put them in different areas that are more interesting. So they might have moved agents around to help them succeed in their jobs more and really go up the chain. So I haven't seen anything negative as far from the agent perspective yet. We'll see what happens down the road. ChatGPT is going to take away a lot of jobs, not just in the contact center, but everywhere. But for now, what I've seen is, again, agent augmentation and really helping agents be more effective and really enjoy their jobs more.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that point of view. And someone in the Q&A asked, what if agents are very resistant to new technology like AI?
You know, it is an issue, but it's always been an issue. You know, whenever new technology is brought in, it's always an issue. But again, help them to understand that the AI is there to help them be more efficient and effective. It's not there to take away their jobs, at least not today. And it's going to take away the boring stuff. It's going to take away that repetitive stuff and let the agents handle more interesting interactions and functions. And it can even help with the agent career path and, you know, go up the chain. So I can understand and I totally get that agents might be resistant and reluctant, but I think if they understand that it's there to help them, then hopefully, you know, they'll see the value.
And when we talk about change management and part of that being getting people excited on board, that's not just decision makers, that is absolutely the users, the agents themselves. If they're not excited and on board, it probably means that something has failed in change management, either that the value hasn't been conveyed to them or that they have some fears that are not letting them really take that in, that they have their own misconceptions that need to be worked on. And sometimes ultimately it's just kind of a case of show me, let's see it. So give it they don't have to be excited about it, but if they're open to giving it a chance and you can involve them in the decision-making process and in kind of behind the scenes a little, they might feel more ownership once they see it in action and see what it can do.
That is such a good point, Lior, because if you just throw the technology out there one day and say, okay, you know, here it is, start using it, then there's going to be hesitancy and reluctance. But if you educate the agents and supervise, you know, everybody ahead of time and let them know what this is going to do, how it's supposed to work, and let them be part of the whole process, then that's really going to help. But if you just say, you know, okay, starting tomorrow, we're going to be using this AI technology, you know, that's not going to work. You really have to, you know, focus on the educating, the training, and the whole change management, as we talked about, and getting those evangelists, getting those cheerleaders, you know, having some people getting really excited and share that excitement with their peers.
Sure, and Blair, to your point, it's like you said earlier, start small. Figure out what needs to be fixed on one or two different metrics, implement, report, and see if everybody likes it and how it's going, and then land and expand as the term goes.
Exactly.
And I love also the start small can be extended, because let's say you pilot it with a portion of your agents. Isn't the best case scenario that all the other agents are jealous? They're like, we can't wait to have this. So there's a strategy there too to increase the hype and get the excitement going, of framing it like these people get to try this new technology, and then showing them the results over time that can help build that excitement if you don't have it on day one.
Yep.
So there is another question in there.
Blair, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So you spoke of bringing professional services to help and construct the technology behind the AI app. Who are the good ones, either specifically or generically? So most of the vendors that have AI solutions do have their own professional services teams, you know, especially now because, you know, it is so important. So I would start with the vendor that you're working with and see what they recommend. And also, if you do have a trusted advisor that you work with, you know, whether it's one of the big ones like, you know, say an Accenture, or in the contact center world, there's Converge One, and God, I'm going to blank on some of the names, and I saw them all this past week. But there are a lot of, you know, typical service system integrators and professional services organizations that you would work with, you know, any of your technologies. But I would also recommend starting with your vendor and seeing what kind of professional services they have to offer, because they know their technology the best.
Right on. So another question: what if you want to implement AI because you don't want to fall behind, but your economics aren't doing so great, or you're worried about budget?
Yeah, again, I would look at it in terms of how much time can it save and how much more productive can AI make your agents. So some of these solutions, as Lior mentioned, aren't that expensive. I mean, some, are, ridiculously high, but, it depends on the solution that you're looking at. And also in some cases, the AI is actually being embedded in these applications that you might already be using, like workforce optimization, and scheduling and forecasting. A lot of those vendors now are just rolling in AI into those applications. So you don't even have to think about it. And, in most cases, you don't even have to pay for it. So you might already be using AI, or your next deployment of some of these, or the next upgrade of some of these things is going to be using it without you having to do anything. But, I think it is important to look at the cost savings that you're going to be getting from it and really balance it out and see what the ROI is. But you also have to recognize that your competitors are going to be doing this. So even if it costs some money, if your competitors are all doing this and you're not, you're going to fall behind. So there are times when you really do have to bite the bullet and make the investment.
The risk of not acting on it can
Exactly.
cost more down the line. Or, even the risk of not improving your customer service. Let's say you're losing X number of customers a year, or they're not renewing. Like, what would a 5% improvement save you? And quantifying those kinds of metric goals and comparing that to the cost of a solution might help you make the case with data. I also want to just add, thinking about de-risking the investment. So if you were okay with starting small, and let's say you found that if you could put in maybe 5,000, and then if a 3-month trial doesn't go well, you'd feel comfortable cutting it off and saying, let's not move forward. So finding that investment that still feels safe, that you can put a foot in the water, a toe in the water, and see what happens. See if you can do that too. I do think that's all the time that we have for questions. Thank you everyone for joining us. Serge, do you want to talk us out?
No, that's it. I really appreciate everybody that has joined in, and the great conversation between Blair and Lior. As I said, this is going to be available as a recording in your mailbox probably within the day. If for some reason you don't receive it, please respond to the email that's within the original invite, and we'll get it